Before starting the tattooing procedure, be sure to disinfect your work field, such as your chair, to prevent any cross-contamination from any previous work performed. I suggest that you use a disinfectant spray such as this. Spray down your instrument tray as well as any area that you might be working in, countertops, etc. It's suggested that you use bags to cover your cap holder as well as your spray bottles, your alcohol, and your antibacterial soap mix. These covers are to help prevent any cross-contamination. Always wear surgical gloves for your protection as well as theirs. Carefully remove tube and needle from the sterilization pouch. Holding the tube in one hand and the needle in the other, carefully slide your needle into the tube and through the tip of the tube. Do not bang or snag the needle. The needle points are very fine and can be damaged very easily. With your free hand, hold your machine and backslide your loop end of your needle and tube into your machine. Tighten your machine clasp. Place your loop over the machine armature bar grommet. Replace rubber bands to the top of the needle bar to prevent vibration and to prevent the needle slipping off the armature bar. Adjust your needle depth by slowly moving your tube in or out. The needle point should be flush with the tube tip. If the needle sticks out further than the tube, then this increases the chance of your needle snagging on the skin when in motion. To check the needle depth, push on the spring to see actual depth. Make sure the needle and tube is straight and parallel with the machine, not bent to one side or the other. Always be very careful and move very slowly to prevent being stuck by the needle. Always allow your client to view you opening their sterilized tubes and new needles. You should also have printed the date that the instruments were sterilized. You should use a quality pouch that has the indicators that change colors when sufficiently sterilized. Repeat procedure for other machines if needed. In this tattooing procedure, I will be using a 3 needle tight and a 14 needle round. Before starting, you should cover your machines to prevent any cross-contamination. Remove one corner of the cover and place it over the machine, being very careful not to snag the needle tip. Even this can damage the points. Attach the clip cord to the machine, then secure it with either tape or a bag tie. This will aid in the prevention of cross-contamination transferring onto your machine frame. Repeat for the other machines if needed. Before transferring the design or pattern, you will need to clean and disinfect the area that is to be tattooed. Spray the area with alcohol and use a single-use razor to remove any hair from the area. Be very careful as not to cut or scratch your client. Removing the hair is mainly to reduce the chance of infection as well as to reduce or hamper your view of the design. When finished, dispose of the razor properly. Clean the area again using the antibacterial soap mix. Pat or fan dry the area. Most health departments would rather you use the Hibiclens solutions than the antiperspirant sticks, so as not to spread any bacteria from person to person. Apply the solution with a sterile cotton ball. Be sure to cover a larger area than the design requires. The Hibiclens will also disinfect the area and allow you a sterile work field. When applying the transfer or design, always make sure that you center the design in the area that the tattooing is to be performed. Lightly lay the pattern on the area. Apply even pressure to the transfer. Be very careful not to move or slide the design around so as not to distort or smudge the transfer. Hold steady for several seconds to allow the entire design to be transferred. And with a slow peeling motion, remove the transfer. When starting the outline, you want to start at the bottom of the design and work your way up. If you start at the top of the design and work down, then you will damage or distort the transfer. As always, start at the bottom and work your way up. Find the start point and move with a downward stroke. Try to avoid working in an upward stroke, as this may increase the chances of snagging. Notice the position of my left hand under the arm, using my thumb and forefingers to stretch the skin. You want to keep the skin as tight as possible to allow proper penetration. Beginning at the bottom of the design, find your start point and your stop point. Start here, stop there. Move in a slow and steady stroke and go from one point to the next. Start, stop. I cannot stress enough importance on keeping the skin tight at all times. This will allow a smoother and cleaner looking line and reduce potential snagging. Notice the steady movement and the speed of the movement. Be very aware. Do not stop in between points, as this will allow the machine to puddle dye and result in a spot in the line. If you stop between points in the line, it will be very difficult to match up the lines again. You want to start at your start point and stop at your stop point. Start, stop. Notice the bottom 3 fingers on my tattooing hand. That's what I call my bridge. This allows me to support my hand and help steady the stroke. Notice the position of my left thumb below the design, pulling down to keep the skin tight. Start, stop. With this long line, be sure to find your start point and your stop point, which would be here, here, and here. If at any time I am not speaking or explaining the techniques being used, please pay close attention to the movements of my hand and the strokes being used, as well as the stretching position of my left hand. Remember, start point, stop point. We will at times be advancing ahead in the tape for timing purposes. There will be a time that the best teacher is to just watch. The smudge on the bottom of the design is out of your work area, so will not be a factor. If you would have started at the top of the design, this would have damaged the transfer and hindered your view of the lines. Here is a good time to mention the importance of keeping the skin tight. Hand under the area, thumb and forefingers pulling. Remember, start point, stop point. There will be times that you will use your thumb to pull down on the skin. Grasping and keeping the skin tight as to prevent the needle from bouncing. You will also be working between your thumb and forefinger, your thumb pulling down and your finger pushing up. If the skin is not tight, then the needle tends to bounce and results in poor penetration and leads to bad lining. For time purposes, we will be advancing ahead in the taping. After completing the outline, clean the area of all ink and dyes. Now it's not as important if you start at the top or the bottom because you are not going to damage or distort the design. In this technique I will be using a 14 needle round. To achieve the wash effect, I used a soap mix bottle for dilution. Fill 3 to 4 caps with solution to wash out or dilute the black dye. Rinse, 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 becomes lighter, lighter, lighter. Dip your machine into the black dye and very carefully run your machine in the solution. When starting your shading or your wash effect, it is important to remember that you can always go darker, but you can't go lighter. So with light pressure, begin working the area to be shaded. You will need to pay close attention to the strokes being used. This stroke is called the flipping stroke. Note the flipping action. In this technique, the speed of your machine should be very low, and this will vary on your transformer. If you notice more lining than shading, then turn your transformer down. Adjust to suit. Again, watch the motion. In shading, it will be necessary to work in the upward stroke to achieve shape and definition. Very important to remember not to be too dark at once. Gradually work the shade needed. Work the machine as you would a paintbrush. You will notice at this point that the dye looks transparent. That's fine. While working the wash effect, it may not look like it's transferring to the skin, but it is. Be very careful not to overwork the skin area being tattooed. Be sure to keep your area clean and your view open. Again, notice the thumb and the forefinger. Stretching the skin, keeping it tight at all times. Now we want to achieve a translucent veil. Your dye at this point must be almost clear. This would be an area that if you are too dark, then you would lose total effect, and you cannot fix that. So work with a very diluted dye and very light pressure. Just skimming the surface of the skin. Darkening areas if it's called for. Again, if at any time I am not speaking or explaining the techniques being used, please pay close attention to the movement of my hand and the strokes being used. Keep your area clean and free of any obstructions such as smears and excessive dye. You will find that you will be doing a lot of work between your thumb and your forefinger, giving you that small area to concentrate on. Again, the flipping motion, light pressure, gradually darken as needed. Pressure, stroke, movement, and speed of the machine will all have a bearing on the type of effect you will achieve. To avoid repeating myself over and over, the best teacher at times is to just watch. Working with a very light pressure and light dilution